A very good morning. I'm Dr. Bhavna and I'll be dealing with etiology of cancer and carcinogenesis. Etiology derives from a Greek word which is the scientific study of the cause of something. We have a various number of factors playing a role in cancer. These are global factors, environmental factors, age, acquired predisposing factors, and genetic predisposition. Cancer occurs because of the interaction between all these various factors. Cancer is always increasing in the incidence. By the year 2030, it is projected there may be a total of 21.4 millions and cancer related being 13.2 millions. So this picture depicts the various estimated cancer incidences in males and females. First, the environmental factors responsible for cancers are mainly pollution. It can be outdoor or indoor, or some factors like stress factors, infections, dietary lifestyle. These are the various factors. Coming to the age, this is very important because few cancers are common in the early childhood, few are very common in the adolescence, few are in the elderly age group. Lymphomas, acute lymphocytic leukemias, are more common in children. Whereas Hodgkin's lymphoma, these are very common in the adolescent age group. Squamous cell carcinoma, hepatocellular carcinoma, bladder cancers, kidney tumors are common in older age group. Next, genetic predisposition. Because genes play a very, very important role. Few genes which are responsible are the BRCA2, which is responsible for the breast cancer, retinoblastoma gene, RB gene, responsible for the retinoblastoma of the eye. So genes also play an important role. Next, we'll see about carcinogenesis. So we can define the carcinogenic agents as those which cause genetic damage so that they induce neoplastic transformation of the cells. They are direct acting and indirect acting. Direct acting, they do not require any metabolic conversion. Indirect acting require metabolic conversion. These are a few examples of direct acting carcinogens, alkylating agents and acylating agents. Anti-cancer drugs are a best example of alkylating agents, and imidazoles are the best examples of acylating agents. So just remember a few examples, maybe one or two for each category. Indirect acting require metabolic activation. There are a number of agents belonging to this category. The first one are the aromatic hydrocarbons like benzanthrene and benzpyrene. Second category, aromatic amines, naphthalamine, and the dyes which we use for the hair. The natural products are the aflatoxin and betel nuts. They also cause cancer. Others like nitrosamine, vinyl chloride, pesticides, fungicides, all these are the chemical carcinogens belonging to the indirect acting group. They belong to the indirect acting group. That is, they require metabolic activation. So these are the pictures of the indirect activating. The most common, betel nut chewers. Common cancer is squamous cell carcinoma. Very, very important for you dental. Okay. Next, the food products, aflatoxin. So aflatoxin is implicated in a number of products like crops, animal feed. All these may get infected with the aspergillus, leading to aflatoxicosis. There are two types of stages, initiation and progression, for the cancer development in the chemical carcinogens. First, we are dealing with the chemical carcinogens. So initiation means the cells of the body are exposed to a sufficient dose of a carcinogenic agent, which is, in this example, the initiator. The characters of initiator are, it is capable of damaging the tumor, or it induces permanent DNA damage, and it is capable of giving rise to a tumor, and it is rapid and irreversible. It has memory. Please remember, it is potentially capable of giving rise to a tumor. It causes permanent DNA damage, and the damage is rapid, irreversible, and has memory. The initiators are highly reactive electrophiles. That is, they don't have electrons, electron deficient. So they react with neutrophilic sites in the cell in our body, like DNA, RNA, and proteins. So this is an electrophile which is electron deficient. That is the initiator. It reacts with the nucleophile, the RNA, DNA in our body. Next, the promoter. They can induce tumors only in initiated cells, or the cells which have been exposed to the initiator. They do not affect the DNA directly, and the change is irreversible. So in this picture you are clearly able to see the initiation and promotion. Initiation is an electrophile. It binds to the neutrophile, that is the DNA, leading to a permanent DNA damage. So this damage is permanent, irreversible. It has memory. Whereas the promoters induce a malignancy in a cell which is already initiated. So it leads to proliferation and additional mutations to become malignant. But it is irreversible. The damage is reversible in promoter. It is reversible. So this picture, it depicts that after the exposure of initiator and promoter at regular intervals of time only, there is a tumor formation. So group 2 and group 2, group 3 and group only have tumors, because the initiator should be followed by promoter for a specific duration of time, without any interval. So the exposure should be without any interval. Next, coming to the physical agents like ultraviolet rays, X-rays, beta rays. So UV rays are implicated in the causation of squamous cell carcinoma, basal cell carcinoma, and melanoma. And the degree of risk depends upon the type of UV rays, the intensity of exposure, and the melanin in your skin. So the melanin is a protective mantle. In the solar spectrum, as you can see in this picture, you have A, B, C. So the B in the range of 280 to 320 can induce cutaneous tumors. And what is the reason for the carcinogenity? It is because of the formation of pyrimidine dimers in the DNA. So usually these dimers occur between the pyrimidine molecules. As you can see, it is occurring in the pyrimidine dimers. So in a normal cell, when the exposure is to a certain extent, this damage is repaired by the nuclear excision repair mechanism. So with excessive sun exposure, this pathway, the repair pathway which I told you, it is nucleotide excision repair is impaired, leading to cancer and some diseases like xeroderma pigmentosa. So in the people with xeroderma pigmentosa, this NER pathway is mutated. It doesn't function well. So they are more prone for malignancy. The next physical agent is ionizing radiation. As I told you, X-rays, gamma rays. So X-rays, gamma rays, and particulate matter like alpha particles, beta particles, and protons. The best example are the survivors of the Nagasaki and Hiroshima incident, because all the survivors have increased incidence of leukemia, and this is the Nagasaki, Hiroshima. And recent example was the gas leak at Visakhapatnam. LG polymers, they can also have some malignancies in the future. So this is the example of ionizing radiation. Next, we come to the microbial carcinogens. So in microbial carcinogens, most commonly are viruses. The viruses may be RNA or DNA. Recently, a bacteria has also been included in this group, the microbial carcinogens which have been described in gastric carcinoma. First, we'll see the classification of the viruses. We have RNA, DNA. So, similarly, we have RNA viruses and DNA viruses. In RNA, we'll just see about HTLV virus or human T-cell leukemia virus. Okay, human T-cell leukemia virus type 1. In DNA, we have a number of viruses, but which is important for you are the human papilloma virus, Epstein-Barr virus, hepatitis B virus, and Kaposi sarcoma virus. First, the RNA viruses, human T-cell leukemia virus. So, as the name implies, it causes T-cell leukemia, most commonly in Japan. And this virus is tropic for CD4 cells. That is, it attacks the CD4 T cells. And the mode of transmission is sexual intercourse, blood products, and breastfeeding, like HIV. Coming to the pathogenesis, this viral genome has few genes like the GAG, POL, and ANV gene. They code for some proteins. For some proteins. And also another gene called the TAX. So, all these products lead to the viral replication. And the TAX gene also helps in increasing the pro-growth signaling and cell survival, that is pro-apoptosis. And it also leads to genomic instability by interfering with the DNA repair function. If any cell is damaged, the DNA is repaired immediately by the many mechanisms. The example I told you previously, nucleotide excision repair. So, similarly, we have another mechanisms also. So, this virus, it inactivates these repair mechanisms and leads to malignancy by genomic instability. Coming to the oncogenic DNA viruses, few are very important for you. So, first one is human papilloma virus. So, we have two types of human papilloma virus, low risk and high risk. Low risk 1, 2, 4, high risk are 16 and 18. What is the difference between the low risk and high risk? Why you are calling them so? Low risk are associated with papillomas or warts. Again, a common clinical condition which you can see, warts, like warty growths seen on the skin and the oral mucosas. Okay? Whereas the high risk, they cause squamous cell carcinoma of the cervix. So, what is the difference in the integrity of the low risk and high risk or the genome? What is it different? In low risk, the genome is not integrated. So, it is called as an episomal form. It is not integrated. Whereas in high risk, it is integrated into the host gene or into the target cell. It is integrated. Whereas in the low risk, it is the episomal, non-integrated form. That is the difference. So, how does it act? By viral genes, E6 and E7. So, few genes are specific to few viruses. HTLV1, we have N, POL, and important was TAX. Whereas in human papilloma, it is E6 and E7. So, they interact with a number of growth regulating proteins encoded by proto-oncogenes and tumor suppressor genes. So, proto-oncogenes and tumor suppressor genes, you must be knowing about them. So, they E6 and E7, the viral genes, they interact with all these oncogenes and tumor suppressor genes. So, the first important is E7. It binds with the RB protein and displaces the transcription factors leading to progression through the cell cycle. It also inactivates some inhibitory factors like cyclin dependent kinases. So, when these inhibitory factors are removed, the cell cycle goes on continuously in your cell leading to malignancy. Whereas E6 has complementary proteins like complementary effects like it is a pro-apoptotic member, it activates telomerase and it degrades P53. P53 is a tumor suppressor gene. It is a molecular policeman. Wherever there is any injury, P53 gets activated and repairs the damage. Whereas E6 protein, it degrades P53. So, the molecular policeman is lost in the cell. Next, it also activates the pro-apoptotic factors. We have anti-apoptotic and pro-apoptotic. So when the pro-apoptotic factor is activated, there is continuous cell growth, no destruction of the cell. And telomerase are also activated, leading to continuous cell growth. No death will be there. That is the reason cancer is, the cell is immortal. We die, but the cancer cell is immortal. So this is the normal function, as I've told you. E6, P53 has the effect on P53, and BAX, it is the pro-apoptosis. Whereas E7, it has the effect on RB and cyclins, cyclin-dependent kinases. Okay. So this also diagram also shows the E7 is inhibiting the RB, E2F transcription factor. So the E2F is free, it leads to the progression of cell cycle. Also it inhibits P21. Therefore, there is increased cyclins and cyclin-dependent kinases leading to the progression of the cell. Whereas E6 has complementary effects, as I've told you. It helps in the increased telomerase expression and it inhibits the tumor suppressor gene. This P53 is very, very important. So when there is inhibition of P53, the cell is immortal, leading to immortalization, increased cell proliferation and genomic instability. So this is about human papillomavirus, which causes warts and squamous cell carcinoma in cervix. Along with those, few genetic cofactors and environmental factors, hormonal changes are also present for the causation of malignancy by HPV. So this is a wart caused by the low risk viruses, whereas these are the stages of cervical carcinoma by the high risk, 16, 18. We next come to the next virus, Epstein-Barr virus, herpes family. So it belongs to herpes family. So the important malignancy is the Burkitt lymphoma, nasopharyngeal carcinoma and Hodgkin's lymphoma. The most common malignancies. Few other uncommon malignancies are gastric carcinomas and other leukemias and lymphomas. So first, the associated diseases, as I've told you. So as you see in this picture, Burkitt's is very common, nasopharyngeal cancer is very common, Hodgkin's is important. The remaining are not so commonly caused by EBV virus. So in the EBV virus, an important protein which is present is the latent membrane protein. It acts as an oncogene and it hijacks several normal signaling pathways and also prevents apoptosis. So this is the pathogenesis. So the important proteins, I'll repeat, latent membrane protein, very, very important. Other proteins which are important are eBNA and viral cytokine. So please remember the latent membrane protein. It acts as an oncogene. So oncogene means it activates the receptors. Here they activate the CD40 receptor, which is the key recipient of the T cell signals that stimulate the B cell growth. And it also prevents apoptosis by activating BCL2. It prevents apoptosis. And the other molecules, as I've told you, eBNA2, it activates proto-oncogenes, and also few viral cytokines are also activated, leading to the transformation of B cells. So this is about EBV virus. So all said about EBV virus. So all these changes, they set a stage for the acquisition of specific mutation called as MYC mutation in a immunocompetent patient. So all these, the oncogenes, the pro-apoptotic factors, all these ready for the translocation to occur, which is called as MYC between the chromosome 8 and 14. Whereas in immunocompromised, there is no MYC translocation. So this is the pictograph showing you the infection by EBV virus. Next, there is expansion of the B cells when they are infected by the EBV cells. So all these are setting a stage for the translocation to occur between 8 to 14. So additional mutations after this translocation lead to Burkitt lymphoma. So this is a clinical picture of a Burkitt lymphoma, mostly seen in the African population. So this is the microscopic picture. Proliferation of the B cells, and individual B cells have inclusions because of the virus. Nasopharyngeal carcinoma, also caused by EBV, by the latent membrane protein. Here in nasopharyngeal carcinoma, various other pathways are also activated. The important pathway is the NF-κB pathway. Also, it upregulates the expression of various growth factors like VEGF and fibroblast growth factor, vascular endothelial growth factor and fibroblast growth factor. I am elaborating on microbial carcinogens because it was previously asked for you. The next virus is hepatitis B and C. They are very simple, causing hepatocellular carcinoma. Okay, hepatocellular carcinoma. Because B and C are chronic infections, we have a number of viruses, hepatitis A to G. But B, C are very important because they have chronic infection. They lead to chronic infection leading to inflammation. So whenever there is inflammation, there is cell death. Because of the damage, the hepatocyte dies. So after there is death, there is regeneration and genomic damage. So this is the HBV. Here they are seeing the HBV-HDV co-infection. It also occurs because of HCV. So there is molecular mechanisms leading to hepatocellular carcinoma. The last one in the microbial carcinogens is Helicobacter pylori. It is the first bacterium classified as a carcinogen, and it leads to gastric adenocarcinoma and gastric lymphoma. So H. pylori, it has various factors for the causation of gastric carcinoma. It has various toxins and it has flagella which help them to adhere to the gastric epithelium. Normally H. pylori will be present, but very, very few. In gastritis patients, the H. pylori load will be more, leading to gastritis. Later, the gastritis gets converted to malignancy in a few changes. So there will be epithelial cell proliferation in a background of chronic inflammation. How does this occur? Because of the gastritis, as I told you, it is followed by injury to the gastric epithelium. So there is gastric atrophy. On a background atrophy, there is intestinal metaplasia. One type of epithelium is changed to another type of epithelium. So after the metaplasia, there will be dysplasia and finally cancer. Dysplasia is a fertile ground for malignancy to occur. So the order of damage: gastric atrophy, metaplasia or the change in the epithelium, replacement of one epithelium by another adult epithelium, later dysplasia, finally cancer. So this is the these are the punched out lesions in the stomach. They are the malignant lesions. They are punched out. So the gene which is important is CAG gene. It penetrates the gastric epithelial cells and it leads to unregulated growth factor. So the CAG gene, cytotoxin associated gene. Cytotoxin associated gene. So this completes the class for today, and the previously asked questions, as I have told you: define neoplasia, classify oncogenic viruses, and explain the role of virus in carcinogenesis. So classify them, the RNA, DNA, and in each of this quote some examples. RNA, HTLV1, DNA, HPV, HCV, EBV, and write the pathogenesis. Say for HPV, you have latent membrane protein, whereas in human papilloma virus, you have other genes like TAX, NV, POL, all these leading to carcinogenesis. Next, mention the types of carcinogens with 2 examples of each. So, under this you have chemical carcinogens, physical carcinogens or radiation, ionizing radiation, environmental pollution, and microbial carcinogens. So in each of this category, give some examples. So the chemical carcinogens, you have direct and indirect. In the direct, alkylating, acylating. In the indirect, you have polyvinyl chloride, betel nut, beta amines, griseofulvin, all of these. Whereas the ionizing radiation, the X-rays, UV rays, particulate matter, alpha, beta, gamma rays. And the Hiroshima-Nagasaki incidents leading to leukemia. Lastly, the microbial carcinogens, RNA, DNA, and bacterium. So don't forget bacterium also to include in the classification of the microbial carcinogens. So with this, we finish this chapter. Thank you.